Friends, Fever fans, welcome back to another Fever Replay podcast, your weekly home for breakdown of Fever games and news. Once again, we are brought to you by the love of the game. Sometimes you're injured for the love of the game. I am Chris Ord, and once again, I am joined by very available and uninjured throughout this season co-host, Keisha Gallagher. How you doing, Keisha?
Healthy, coach. Ready to get in there.
Good. This was a crazy week. How was your week, personally?
As a Phoenix fan, not great. But, for basketball, there's been a lot of exciting stuff. Some upsets, some shocks, but it's a tough week of basketball. Lots of injuries.
And also just lots of missing players, which is what we're going to talk about first. DeWanna Bonner, we've been missing her for a number of weeks now. And we got the news. If you haven't been paying attention to it, we found out that DeWanna Bonner and the Fever have split ways. The Fever waived DeWanna. It seems like this was DeWanna's choice. Bonner said, "I want to sincerely thank the Indiana Fever for the opportunity to be part of the Fever franchise. Despite our shared goals and excitement heading into the season, I felt the fit did not work out, and I appreciate the organization's willingness to grant my request to move on, particularly at this point in my career," Bonner said. "I wish the Fever great success as they continue to build around this dynamic group of young players." So, Bonner requested, as she states there, to be let go. And it wasn't a trade situation. Her contract was unprotected, so she was waived. She was paid out with a prorated rate, so she got paid for the days she was there. But we do gain some cap space. But we have a hole in our roster. We actually filled that hole instantly with Aari McDonald, who, listeners of the podcast would know, I was really hoping that we'd find a way for her. So we did find a way for her. Sadly, even though we filled the literal hole, it does not fill the physical hole that DeWanna Bonner leaves, because Aari is not a tall lady. She plays a different position. One we certainly need, but they are very different players. What are your thoughts, Keisha?
Yeah, the Fever stay guard heavy. You guys just... We want to keep those guards coming in with the anxiety of an injured point guard. But I am sad that it did not work out for Bonner. I think the way that this rolled out, due to a lot of how the media portrays things, has been pretty unfortunate, though. Feels like that a lot of folks are trying to drag her through the mud. And me personally, as a fan of her, watching her play in Indiana, I thought that she did have some pretty important and key moments for the team, but I never really saw chemistry there. I didn't really ever see her and think that there was a role that she was finding for herself.
Yeah, and we talked about that many times. We'd be like, okay, DeWanna also a little quiet this game, or wow, she, barely played. Oh, she's coming off the bench now. Like, just to review, the actual situation of what happened, we picked her up, we gave her pretty decent money for a 1-year contract. We were excited. She was excited. I remember in the beginning, in fact, we talked about it, how she was like, man, never played before a crowd like this. It's nice to have her on my side. Like, this is great. She seemed super pumped in the very beginning. Now, we never really saw her have, her big breakout game. We saw breakout moments. We saw times where she helped us close a game or two. But we didn't see it. And we ourselves were, holding our breath, I can't wait to be excited. We have DeWanna Bonner. We know she's excellent. She played excellent last year. I remember us playing against her being like, man, this DeWanna Bonner chick is really good. It's not oh, this should be expected. She's older. She probably wasn't going to be great. That is not what her expectation, nor the Fevers, nor the fans. Everyone kind of thought this was going to be a bigger thing, right? So she comes on the team. not really working so far. I assumed it was a fit situation, like we're just trying to figure out, where does she fit into the game plan? Maybe have to drop some plays for her. Who knows? I was assuming it would work out eventually. But at some point, she got moved to the bench, which at the time, everybody seemed fine with. But then she not only got moved to the bench, she wasn't even the first off the bench after a while. That started to be Sophie. So she was like a second off the bench situation. And I think looking back now, hindsight not only being 2020, but we know from her own perspective that was not where she wanted to be.
Right.
She didn't outright say, I didn't want to be a bench player, but she left after taking a leave of absence for personal reasons, which we now know was her trying to figure out her life and if she wanted to finish the season off with the fever. And then asked to be waived, which isn't the worst way for things to have ended with the fever. In a lot of ways, it's good. It gives us cap space, and it gives us the ability to pick up anyone we need to. Like Aari, we picked up somebody we wanted to, which we couldn't have done if we had to trade. But it is an interesting way. Like me personally, I have never liked when people take this tact as far as being on the player side. I don't feel like she screwed us. I do feel like it's a business and it's her career. So a whole year somewhere you don't want to be. She doesn't have a lot of years left. She's 37 years old. I get it. I'm not like, DeWanna's the worst. But I've never liked when players do that. I'm not like, oh yeah, that's great. It's fine. I didn't really like it that much. I would have liked her to continue trying. Like, when she actually posted, and I don't know who she was responding to specifically, but she posted something saying like, quitter, I've never been a quitter. I've never done it before, I'm never going to, blah, blah, all this stuff. And I was like, you did quit the team. Like, that is what you did. Which is, once again, you're in a tough situation. You got to make your own life choices. We weren't using you. That's like a fact. So the fever also, it was very mutual decision in that the fever had stopped playing her as a starter and her minutes were starting to dwindle. So it's like, it's not like she made this up, like she's blowing something out of proportion. There was work that needed to be done to put her in the place she felt like she needed to be. And I get it that she was like, I don't think that the spot on this team is worth that work. That was kind of like what I was feeling from it.
I also want to think of this from it is a business, so
yeah,
there is a lot to be said about having someone who's being paid $200,000 on an unprotected contract sit on your bench when you are starting to get paranoid about injuries. And let's really think about this. When there has been some criticism about this in the past, but I don't think anyone could say anything about it, especially with the performance that Kelsey Mitchell's having this season. But Kelsey Mitchell, I think, is like one of the highest salaries on that team, who might be maxed out at whatever that cap is for her, which makes sense. She deserves that money.
Yeah.
And then there's Natasha Howard, who is another great grab for the Fever. And like, we've talked about it many times how we love having Natasha Howard, but it also hasn't been the smoothest transition. I definitely think it's been better for her. But also, like, that's a lot of money. That's 200, maybe 50 for Kelsey, 200-ish for Natasha, who, again, 3-time WNBA champion, brings that level, that veteran experience and that overall experience playing on multiple teams. Worth it, but that's a lot of money to have kind of tied up in someone who's getting no minutes. And who has an expectation to get those minutes, and like you mentioned, is on limited legs. She's been in the league a long time. There's a lot of stuff up in the air right now. I don't think it's as simple as I'm upset I'm not getting playing time. I'm giving up on this team. I don't think it's that black and white.
No, I agree. That's why, because when you look at it, something people will tell people young in their career, whether it's basketball or otherwise, is like, hey, be patient, put in the work. People are going to notice you, yada, yada. That's not where she's at. She has eyes. If she tells teams that she's open to play with them, there's a good chance she can make it there. And she doesn't have the time to be patient. This is the time to go, go, go. And she needs to be on a team where she can play. So I totally get that. And you're right, like, this wasn't the worst shake for the Fever. That's the main thing that doesn't put a bad taste in my mouth about it. is it does help. Like, as a Laker fan, when we had the Russell Westbrook contract, which was huge, I've tried to purge it from my mind. It was many, many, many millions of dollars. He was one of the highest paid. We brought him over. We thought he was going to get us a ring. He turned out being a horrible fit. He looked like he didn't know how to play basketball on some nights. Can be completely honest. If you weren't watching, that's what it looked like. And then everyone was like, bench him, get rid of him. And it was kind of like, guys, we're paying too much. He has to be out. Like, if you're paying that much, he has to be out on the, like, the person that's going to replace him is like some guy who, like, is a G League person. Like, we have no money on our bench. Nobody is there to replace him. Having dead weight like that, contract-wise, is a huge problem. So, like, for that to get alleviated is a really big deal and very helpful to us. It's a problem we still have to solve, but we have the tools to do it. We have the cap space. I'm very interested. We kind of talked a little bit about it before we started recording. Like, gosh, she said that she would want to go play with her wife in Phoenix or play in, I think she said Atlanta. Those are like the two places she'd want to play. Now, the question is, gosh, how much could she even get paid? Now, good news for her, she got paid a prorated rate, which is very similar, if not the same, as like a vet minimum. So she kind of like already got paid at least a vet minimum this year. So that's not, it's less than she was hoping for, but not the worst. So if she can get any contract going anywhere and playing meaningful minutes, might not be the worst for her. But, like, how much room do they have with Phoenix to even pay her?
And that's the thing that is really confusing for me, is if she wanted to go to Phoenix, why didn't she just go to Phoenix? Like, I understand the draw to play for Stephanie, for Coach White. I know that her family, I know her kids live in Indiana, but she's played in Phoenix before. AT's in Phoenix. That was a really confusing. I was excited to see her in Indiana, but I was also confused by that call. And now, as a Phoenix fan, I know that Phoenix very recently just let go of Megan McConnell due to her injury. She's been out pretty much the entire season and just signed for a year contract Kiana Williams. So we don't have the cap. We don't have, like, it would be disrespectful to try to get her to Phoenix for that money. I think there's only a few teams that do have the space, and I want to say Connecticut is one of them. I can't imagine she would go back to Connecticut. I think maybe I want to say it was the Valkyrie, and it might have, I don't think the Dream has the space either. I mean, they have superstars like Ryan Howard and Alicia Gray. Brittany Griner was a big grab for them this year, so I don't really know where she could go.
And it is also fairly telling. We're talking about this on Sunday, June 29th. This happened, I think, about 5 days ago. She hasn't been picked up yet.
Right.
You know? And she's a quality player. So regardless of the fit that happened on Fever, I think that there are plenty of teams who have starters right now that are not as good as DeWanna Bonner. So the fact that she hasn't got snapped up yet, I'm a little nervous for her. I understand her shooting her shot, but I don't know. I hope this works out for her, honestly. She seems like a nice lady. Yeah,
well, I was just going to say a couple of things that I think this highlights, though, when it comes to these decisions when you're in a build-back season. I think that this brings to the table how much value it could bring to the league if we had more cap, if we had more room.
Correct.
Because I would be devastated if we don't get to see DeWanna Bonner play any more basketball in 2025, considering the record she just broke with the Fever. Like, it would just be horrible to see her career go out like this, even if it was kind of a backdoor deal, or things were being said and weren't shared maybe as openly as people would have wanted. It would be just a big misfortune to not see her complete the season on whatever team.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's why I love the expansions, first off. What's clear is there's not enough teams for the amount of talent out there, and there's also not enough money for those teams. So both of those things are very, very clear to me. Only having watched the WNBA seriously last year and this year, it's glaringly obvious. I'm like, what? What do you mean? Like, Like in the NBA, Aari McDonald would have been on a team starting. Like it just didn't make sense. When she started playing, I'm like, why is there a person that was available that can play like that? I don't understand. And right now, for the amount of days that DeWanna Bonner's been available, how has no one snatched her up? It doesn't make any sense. I'm not understanding it. It's just, I mean, you know, I think the league is hopefully, I know they're expanding, and that takes time, and you don't want to do it too fast. So that's great. But what are we doing about the cap space? How are we helping these teams? That you need more. You need more than 11 or 12 players. That's not enough. It's just not enough players. Anyway, before we move on, the other side to this, which I don't want to miss out on bringing up, the reason DeWanna was not starting was because Lexi Hull is not just playing well, she has transformed herself as a player in the WNBA. She's like a record high for herself in like every category. And I don't think anybody who watches the Fever is like, Lexi shouldn't be starting. We're way better with her on the court, which I don't want, like, you know, I wanted to take a moment to talk about DeWanna, but she's not on the team anymore. Let's like highlight the actual slightly good side of this whole story, which is that we had somebody who was playing more meaningful and productive minutes than DeWanna freaking Bonner. Who could that have been? It was Lexi Hull, and it's crazy. It's kind of crazy what we're seeing out of her.
I mean, the only bad news about Lexi Hull starting is she's probably out of contention for sixth man now because she was that impactful this entire season.
No,
like that's really the only bad news.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, team wise, I think this is a great opportunity now that we know that DeWanna is not going to be available. Who is going to fill that post role, especially going into this next half of the season? Because we have a huge game coming up, and we've seen what the impact of not having DeWanna for several games looks like. And I think there has been a lot of folks stepping up and having great games that we've seen, especially this last week. And then there's been opportunities where it's like, this is why not having another season big available is hurting us.
As far as post players, first off, Howard is really starting to gel. When we had just talked about DeWanna and like that, I'm not fitting, this much work needs to be done, and only she and the Fever know how much work that was, you know, in order to make me fit into the scheme. Like, is that what I want to do right now? And she decided no, which I think probably she knows what she's talking about better than me. Probably a good call, right? I think it was like either she had to play something completely out of her bag, or they were like, yeah, we'll figure it out, but we don't know the answer yet. And she's like, you know, season's almost halfway done, guys. We should have an answer. You know, whatever conversations that was, she decided not enough. And then whatever conversations they're having with Howard, I think are going in the opposite direction. I think they're really starting to settle in and be like, wow, Howard is this person who is a matchup nightmare. Like, she is bigger and stronger than every guard in the league. She is faster on her feet than every center. Like, this is a fantastic player. We don't need to create plays for her. She can just, like, beat her man and be ready. And if we need to force things in, we can force them through her. Like, that's the answer, you know? Because you do oftentimes see Boston, who I absolutely love, have trouble if it's just like go time. We need to have her go straight in there. She is sometimes outmuscled down there. She's rarely ever outsmarted down there. She's making amazing moves. Her pick and roll is incredible, especially with Clark. But sometimes she has a little trouble just muscling things in. We need a tough point. Go in and get it, Boston. Doesn't always happen. Howard is fitting that role for us because sometimes you just need to stop a run. You don't need a pretty play. You need to get a point on the board and then a defensive stop. And if you need a point on the board and a defensive stop, Howard is one of the very best in the league at those two things. So it's not like she's like, she's like blowing up the stat sheet, but she's settling in and really seems to be a part of what we're trying to do, which is pretty exciting for me.
Yeah, I mean, this is someone who has been in the league and has won with a lot of different types of players, different teams, has played a lot of different roles. And I think she is similar to Kelsey Mitchell. When you need something to get done, she's a go-to player because of all the reasons you listed before. She's a matchup nightmare. She is strong, she is fast, and she's very clever. I think that's something that Aaliyah Boston will get to learn a lot about this year. Is Aaliyah Boston's probably one of her biggest struggles is she's working really hard way too much of the time of the possession. As a post player, you have to be really cautious of when you start posting up, when you start getting aggressive, when you start putting all of your weight and energy into bodies. And if you're overdoing it, getting exhausted, getting frustrated when you think you're getting fouled because you wasted all that energy, I think that can get into her head, and you can see those struggles impact how she's presenting herself for the rest of that quarter. So I think that's just something that takes time to learn because, yeah, Aaliyah Boston's one of my favorite post players. She's incredible. She continues to get better. I will always be an advocate for her getting the ball every possession.
The other piece of it is Michaela Timpson. So Bree Turner, I've not been impressed with. I feel like the coaching staff has not necessarily been impressed with. I think we're trying her in spots, especially now that Dantas is not in. So, like, Dantas obviously is kind of earned her spot as our second best big, right? But when we're looking at who's filling this void kind of in our post, we were trying Turner, and it wasn't really working.
It was not really working, yeah.
But we just recently, as of the last game with the Wings, started playing meaningful minutes with Timpson, and I gotta say that was exciting. First off, it was exciting for me just to get the rookie some playtime because, quite frankly, she hasn't gotten a ton of playtime. But then what I saw out there was pretty cool. She needs some work. She is a rookie in a big spot in a grown women's league. You know, like, that takes time. She's going to have to put on some weight for sure. She's getting out-muscled and sometimes outsmarted and sometimes targeted. But at the same time, I saw bright spots that I definitely wasn't seeing when we had Turner in there. And I saw moments with her, like, putting on her big girl pants, you know, and kind of muscling her way into a basket and making it happen. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, she was showing me that fire and that drive to, like, kind of take pride in her own minutes. You know, you can tell she's like, okay, I'm out here, I need to make this happen. Like, I need to be doing something while I'm out here. And not, like, forcing it. I didn't see a lot of that. But I saw a lot of, like, I'm here, I need to make my presence known. I need to be a post for this team. Not just, like, a fifth body on the floor. Which is, I don't know. I'm excited to see where it goes. What were your thoughts on her first, like, real game, I think, of the season?
I think she's just so athletic. Once she figures out how to apply that strength and probably put a few LBs on, I think she's going to be another menace for this team because she gives me a kind of a Temi energy. I could see her leading a lot of fast break opportunities. I can see her with the range that she has really stretching out the floor and creating more cutting lanes. I think I'm very glad that when we were going through the possibilities of people being waived or cut when all of the injuries were kind of popping at the same time, I'm very glad that Timpson was not a victim of that. I think she brings a lot to the table. She just needs the time.
Yeah, I was shocked when I was looking into kind of her stats and stuff about her, and I realized that she's only listed as 6'1", and I was like, how's that possible? 6'1" doesn't sound right. But then I realized she has a wingspan of 6'10".
Them long arms.
6'10" wingspan.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's why it doesn't, when she's out there, she doesn't feel undersized. She's not your traditional 5, and we don't play her in that position. But I was like, how could she possibly be 6'1"? That doesn't make any sense, right? And then that's why those long arms really take.
You found out she's part pterodactyl, and it all came together.
Right. You want a part pterodactyl on a basketball team.
I'm pro pterodactyl. I just want everyone to know that, in case anyone had questions.
Same here. We're allies here on this podcast when it comes to pterodactyls. The other thing that she brings to the table, and this is a 1-game sample, but it did get me excited because I have this pet theory when it comes to our losses, right? Because we tend to get blown out in the fourth quarter, right? Like, we've had the last, 3 or 4 losses. Same game, well-fought first half that we come up on top. Third quarter, it was different each time. Sometimes it's questionable. Sometimes we're right in it and doing great and just keeping it up. But then all the time, all of our last, I think, 4 losses, the fourth quarter, we just crumble. And then we have no gas in the tank. We look like a completely different team, right? Specifically against the Sparks. We had that game put away. And then they didn't really do anything different. They just were able to break through. Our defense disappeared. And so we can go into why you think that is, but one of my main things I've been noticing is we will start the fourth quarter with our closing lineup on the court. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all. That, to me, really paints yourself into a corner. If you have your closing lineup out there to start the fourth, you're either saying we're going to stay in for 10 minutes or we're going to pull them at some point so they can get a little rest and then go back in. Either one is bad to tell the other team. Hey, these are clearly our best 5. There's going to be a good 5 minutes, 3 minutes, who knows how many minutes coming up very soon where we're going to take them out to give them a little bit of rest. That's scary to do right before the end of the game. It's also scary to leave them in the whole time because I feel like in both those situations you see why we kind of become tissue paper, even though we've kind of hung our hat on our defense the whole year. Coach White's always talking about keeping teams under 20 for all 4 quarters. And, we seem very capable every single game of keeping them under 20 for 3 quarters. We're a team that could do that. But sometimes we don't keep them under 30 in the fourth quarter. And that seems to be the reason we lose every time. So what I saw in this, like I said, just a sample size of 1, was Timpson started the fourth. She played her biggest chunk halfway through the third and then played several minutes into the fourth. And then Howard closed out the game. And I like Howard, having rested, closing out the game. I like that a lot. And that's what I like. I think that could be a really big piece to the puzzle. So, I don't know. What are your thoughts? I'm sometimes, when I talk about basketball, a little rotation heavy. Maybe I put too much importance on the rotation of subs and everything. But to me, that was a glaring thing.
I think when you're playing this many games in a week, though, that has to be a discussion. I mean, that has to be considered. There was a lot of basketball this week. I think everyone is tired. The injuries are stacking up. And the decision-making when it comes to coaching is going to have a huge impact. There's been a lot of technicals this week. There's been a lot of hard fouls. Melbourne on the Mystics had her tooth knocked out by Chelsea Gray in a very competitive game. It's getting chippy in general, and we're approaching the All-Star break. Commissioner Cup's coming up. It's getting to the point of the season where...
Wait. Who's in the Commissioner Cup?
Oh, that's right. We are.
Oh, we are. Okay, go on.
But all of that to say, putting that together, those fourth quarters are not just being lost, they're almost being given away. And there's a lot of factors that I'm seeing, and I think one of the key things that was driving me crazy was the points in the paint in that Sparks game. The Sparks owned the key. I think they had, half of their points, or close to half of their points, were all in the paint, which is insane for how strong our bigs are. But I think we just got overwhelmed, and I didn't really see anyone making that push or taking the initiative. There was just almost an okay to let it go at some point. And I also feel like when it comes to decision making, I don't know what your thoughts are. The smaller lineup, I feel like it's not working. I feel like we're going to it a lot, and I'm not seeing the benefit of that paying off yet. So maybe it's still being tweaked, but I don't really want to see that anymore. Not when you have Natasha Howard and Aaliyah Boston.
Yeah, our small lineup works against small teams. But the times we've gotten beat most handily is versus teams that have multiple bigs that are skilled. And so it's kind of okay, great. If we're playing a small ball, we might be able to win. Great, cool, yeah. Most of the league doesn't. You know, like, we also need to figure out that side of the game. And realistically, if we have our best big players on the court, we should also be able to beat the small teams too. So it's like, that's not a pitch that's going to work most of the time. So I agree. I'm not a super fan of it. I feel like we kind of talked about this a little bit a couple pods ago, but our game really shines when we're not doing the transition thing, because that's our thing. Our half court really shines when we're getting a lot of screening actions in. Our double screens, our flare screens, pick and pops, all those fun stuff in the corner are really cool and something that you don't see a lot of other teams do, and you saw us doing really well. With those, you need bigs to set your screens. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the whole point. Yeah, you're going to have your flashy guards running around, but without the big to set the screen, it's just not happening.
Yeah.
And you don't see it happen. Like, that's kind of where you see our offense, our half-court offense, start to sputter, I think, is in those moments when we're looking around and we're like, oh, it's just a bunch of us ball handlers. What are we doing? What are we doing? Let's take a little bit of time just to pay the bills, talk about Caitlin Clark, even though she's out. But we didn't really, the injury, it was a second time where it's kind of just like the quad injury. We didn't see like a moment where it happened. Mm-hmm. And she just kind of came up lame after the game, apparently. And now we're finding out that she has a growing injury. Obviously super concerning. Well, it's nice that we kind of split those games with one win and one loss, but obviously Caitlin Clark is the heart and soul of our team. So that's a problem. At first I kind of hoped, it was like, oh, you know, she's still coming back. We kind of discussed it was going to take a couple weeks for her like conditioning to get back where it needed to be for her to play the minutes she's used to playing. I was like, maybe this is one of those things they just wanted to sit her for one of the back-to-backs, you know? And then she set the second one. I was like, oh, you know, I get it. She's sitting both back-to-backs so she can be ready for the Commissioner Cup. But I don't know if I'm reading too much into this. There was this moment where Lexi Hull was mic'd up, and they showed her in the game jump up and cheer. And Caitlin Clark jumps up too. And then she goes, ow. And she nods and sits back down. And I was like, oh, not great. Not great if cheering. I'm hoping that maybe she was saying ow about something else. Like maybe she was watching and somebody got hit. She was like, ooh, ow. I don't know. That made me a lot more nervous. And I'm like, damn it. Is she seriously just injured again? Like, this sucks. I mean, they haven't really said much. They haven't given us a timeline. They haven't really said anything, so I'm nervous. I mean, I think they're not saying anything on purpose. It's a gamesmanship thing. They have this very big game with the Commissioner's Cup coming up. They don't want to let the other team know what to prepare for. I get that. I'm just nervous because we literally don't know what's going on with her.
Well, it's a huge week. I mean, Caitlin has been injured. The situation with Bonner is finalized. You're acquiring this new guard. All of this right before this huge event that the Lynx are hungry for, and playing against the Lynx without your star, it has to feel very stressful going into this game because you have to have two plans prepared, and then you need to execute both plans perfectly if you want a chance to beat Minnesota right now. They are just, I mean, they've had their losses, but they are just a beast. I would be concerned as well.
Great. Thanks, Keisha.
You bet.
Thanks for that. On the other side of things, Aari looked fantastic last game versus the Wings. She started, which is kind of what I was expecting. Like, I didn't think it was worth cutting Colson to sign Aari, for sure. I don't think Colson deserved that. But since we were able to get Aari without losing her, I would personally have started her over Colson. It just seems like her fit, her ability on both defense and offense to like get things going. She is very active on defense. She was doing a great job of taking Aari out of the game.
Yeah, Aari from Dallas. Yeah, she destroyed her.
So that was super cool. to see. But then also on the play creation side, on offense, she's just got a motor under her, and she's like, "This is what I'm going to do. I'm either going to score or I'm going to create a shot for you. Be ready." Like, and I love it. It's so great having her on our team. So in spite of losing Caitlin, at least we got something on offense.
You got a capital M menace, and she's going to be. I can't wait to see her matched up against some of the links, because she's gonna frustrate Courtney Williams and Heidemann. She's gonna be an annoying gnat to all of those shooters, and we'll see if she can have that same impact that she had against Aari.
Speaking of shooters, before we move completely off Caitlin Clark, it was really interesting because Kelsey Plum, you probably heard this, had this really interesting take, because people are always going to, judge Caitlin super harshly, which I don't know. You could decide if you think that's right or not. But, I mean, she is the face of the league right now, so people are going to judge her. But Kelsey Plum said, is Caitlin having a shooting slump? Everyone wants to talk about that. But did you know Sabrina Ionescu is 2 for 7 from 3 the last 2 games? Paige Buckets, 2 for 17 the last 5 games. This was before the last game, by the way. She said it before. Mm-hmm. This is 2 days ago worth of stats. Marina Mabry, 2 for 17 last 3 games. Kelsey Blum, 4 for 22 last 4 games. Aari, 4 for 17 last 3. Chelsea Gray, 7 for 28 last 6. Bree Stewart, 6 for 20 last 7. She said the entire WNBA is in a shooting slump. We're tired. Which is actually not an insignificant point to make. That was just a social media post. She's just kind of clapping back at people. But at the same time, it's like, when you talk about the number of games we're playing, when your legs are tired, you're missing from deep. That's like a fact. And that's just kind of what we're seeing across the league. We're seeing it from Caitlin as well while she was in.
So I think we kind of hit on this earlier, though, like the W doesn't have the same money that the NBA has, and the schedule and the season is quite different. They are tired. I think it is fair to say that the last few games have been exciting. They're high scoring. We still have people shooting phenomenal percentages, so sure, some of these big names may be struggling in certain positions, but also I think, I can't remember which team it was who just broke another scoring record. It might have been Seattle, but people are shooting really well from the 3. Maybe not individuals who you happen to focus on because of their media attention, but it's how many we could pull the same sheets for multiple NBA stars or multiple Euro professionals. I think it just gets really ticky-tacky when you have so much pressure on a player like Caitlin Clark, who's in her 2nd year. So she's having a couple of rough games. I think it's crazy to call that a slump. She's dealing with an injury, coming back. Everyone's tired. Multiple injuries. People are playing probably more minutes than their coaches would like them to, especially in these key roles. When you're a point guard, we want our superstars to play as much as they can, but if you're up by 40 and you're forced to keep your starters in because you have no one on your bench, that's not great.
No, absolutely. And that's I was listening to a podcast that your wife sent me that had Sue Bird and Howard talking. It was fantastic. Check it out. But they were talking about this issue with reffing and how it's kind of crazy that the WNBA plays shorter minutes, 40 minutes per game versus 48, but they still have one extra foul, which they mentioned was a holdover from the NBA, meaning that the NBA used to have that many fouls. They changed it. But when you look at that plus the small roster size, it's this really kind of crazy situation where you have women playing less minutes but allowed to have more fouls, and it doesn't make any sense. Like, that's when you talk about this being a physical league, why are we allowing, like, if you let that many people have that many fouls, that's that many more heavy fouls on your stars. And why is that allowed? It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, not to talk about it, our clear competitors podcast,
Right.
but Sue Bird, I mean, the depth and breadth of knowledge that she has about basketball when it comes to college and professional, international, like on the Olympic level, she is just she's so well thought out when it comes to those types of situations. Like, yes, we want to have our incredible teams play, and by giving them this additional foul, it keeps those players on the court more, and that's exciting. But exactly that, now you have these players on really small rosters getting more physical, having, the W is a physical league. They're having more opportunities to have all of this, violence basically acted against them.
And the league is putting their stamp on saying, yes, that's allowed.
Yeah.
We actually, just so you know, you didn't use all your fouls last week. You should probably be fouling a little more. Players hate fouling out. If they didn't have 6 fouls, then you wouldn't have as many people going to 5. You'd have more people that get to 4 and are like, gosh, I really need to cool this down.
No, I think that's especially because of the injuries. Mm-hmm. That's something that I wish, again, could be discussed and considered. Mm-hmm. How many, I know Melbourne got hurt this week, lost a tooth. I know Lexi Held for Phoenix punctured her lung in New York, had to take a train back to get back to Phoenix. I know that Ryan Howard went out today with a hip injury. It's a lot. It's a lot. And they're physical games, lots of games. I think we have to really consider, if, the powers that be, how are we keeping the players safe? How are we keeping their careers long? Are the officials as trained as they should be? And are we paying them enough that if a situation happens where they're considering retirement, they can comfortably retire instead of creating this chaotic narrative that's now anyone is talking about?
Mm-hmm. On that very bright note, let's move on to our big game we have coming up on Tuesday versus Minneapolis. It is the Commissioner's Cup game. As a reminder, guys, that means that the entire team is going to split $500,000 plus a certain amount of crypto. I'm not sure exactly how much, but they're getting that too. That is a lot of money for our players. Not all the players are Caitlin Clark and are on every single commercial that comes up during the game, which I'm happy for her. But not all of them are millionaires. Remember that. So this is a life-changing amount of money for some of our bench players and a good amount of money for even our starters. So this is a big deal. How are we going to do, Keisha? What's going to happen?
Ooh, well, I just have to say this, and I'm going to say it now so I can get it out there. Collier is having a record-breaking year. I think she is the standout. Don't get mad at people. I think she's the standout only option, really, for MVP. And I think that she is basically unguardable. If you can shut her down,
if we have
you can win.
Aari McDonald, though, right?
It's really all about shutting down Collier and then making sure that everyone else feels pressure to take uncomfortable shots. Because if their feet are set, the Lynx are going to score. They're very aggressive. They're very fast. They're super disciplined. Cheryl Reeves is one of the most intense coaches in the league, and she demands perfection. So this is going to be a tough game. Not unwinnable, but we just have to. We can't give up a fourth quarter to the Lynx. It's just not possible. We have to play really great basketball each quarter, have to limit the turnovers, and we cannot let them dictate the pace of the game. Mm-hmm. Courtney Williams and Collier had the type of chemistry that Mitchell and that Clark and Boston have, that Mitchell has with Howard. It's crazy how they can find each other. And then you have people coming off the bench like Jay Shepard, who's huge down low. You have Kayla McBride, who can shoot from anywhere behind the arc. It's just a very stacked and talented team. Alana Thomas coming off the bench is another big post player, and all of them are fast, and they can all shoot the three.
Great. Now, here's what we have on our side. Got Aari McDonald, who was sitting on her couch last week, not playing. But we also have some great shooters. That's the nice thing, is that we can get very hot, and we have some players that are playing lights out from beyond the three. So we do always have that in our pocket. I hope the fourth quarter doesn't come back to bite us. But I got good news for you, friends out there. We are going to have a second episode. We're going to recap that Commissioner's Cup game later on this week, and we'll also just briefly touch on the other two games, because we got the Aces on Thursday, and on Saturday we have the Sparks again. So we got a big week of basketball. But with that, I just want to thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys have a great week. I hope all of your groins are fine, and that there's not a sneaky injury waiting there for you. Hopefully not. Hopefully I didn't just jinx you. But thanks once again for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Fever Replay podcast.
Stretch.
All right.
Oh.